How much reading is good? 6 tips to train your brain without getting tired in the elderly. Dear friends, have you ever wondered how much reading is enough? Have you ever been sitting quietly on your familiar armchair, opened a book, read a few pages, and suddenly felt your mind wandering, the words dancing before your eyes, and then had to close the book with a sigh? It's not because you don't want to read anymore, but because you feel tired. Is that right? In fact, many people our age feel the same way. Reading is an elegant hobby, a great way to train your mind, but as you age, your eyes are not as sharp as before, your mind also needs more rest, and reading can become torture if you're not careful. But if you don't read, you're afraid of losing your memory and your mind becoming sluggish. So how much reading is good? Is there a way to read without getting tired, to keep your brain healthy and still feel relaxed? Today, we will sit together, like old friends, sharing warmth in a peaceful afternoon. Our topic is, how much reading is good? 6 tips to train your brain without getting tired. This is not a long lecture, nor any mechanical advice. Just a simple conversation between people who are interested in intellectual health and old age. And I believe, if we understand the right approach, reading will become a joy again, a medicine for the mind, not a burden. Did you know, according to a study from Yale University in the United States, older people who read regularly for 30 minutes a day have an average life expectancy of nearly 2 years longer than those who do not read anything. Interestingly, reading paper books, not newspapers or reading online, has the most obvious effect. But if you just look at the number 30 minutes a day and try to force yourself to read enough, it is not necessarily good. Because reading is not like taking medicine. You do not need an exact dosage, you do not need to be rigidly regular. What matters is the quality of the time you spend, and how you read. That is the key point. So, let's start with the first tip, also a small change but makes a huge difference. Read as if you are enjoying it, not memorizing it. Many of us grew up in a time when reading was associated with studying for exams, studying to remember, studying to avoid being scolded by teachers. So when we pick up a book, we unconsciously turn on the memorization mode, focus, and try to understand every word. As a result, after only 15 minutes, we feel like we are out of battery. Instead, try to imagine that each page of a book is like a cup of hot tea. Take small sips, slowly, to savor the taste. Don't try to read the whole chapter, the whole paragraph, the whole book. Just read enough to feel your heart calm down. Your mind is taken somewhere else, that's enough. I have a friend in Minnesota. He is 78 years old. Every day he reads for exactly 10 minutes, in the late afternoon, sitting on the balcony, listening to the wind, and reading any part of the book he is reading. Some days it is just 1 page, some days it is 2. But he says, it is time set aside for the mind to wander. And he is still very sharp, with a good memory that he remembers the birthdays of each of his grandchildren. We don't need to read a lot, we need to read the right way. Let's move on to the second tip. This sounds simple, but is the gatekeeper of our intelligence. Listen to your body when reading, don't let books control you. I know an old lady in Texas, she has been a book lover since childhood, has a whole bookshelf in her house. But when she turned 70, her eyes started to get tired. Sometimes she even felt dizzy if she read for a long time. At first, she tried to read as before because she was afraid that if she stopped, she would flood with knowledge. But after only a few months, she had headaches and insomnia regularly. And then, she decided to change the way she read. She set a rule for herself. When her body says enough, she closes the book. No reluctance, no regrets. Even when she comes to an interesting part, she doesn't force it. Because she understands that the mind is healthy only when the body also gets the right rest. We often forget that reading uses not only the eyes, but also the brain, neck, shoulders, and nape. If you sit in the wrong position, if the light is not enough, if you read for too long without taking a break, your body will have to pay the price. And when your body is tired, your mind cannot receive information effectively. So, my friends, if your eyes are sore while reading, close them and rest for a while. If your shoulders start to stiffen, stand up and stretch. If your mind starts to get fuzzy, maybe it's time to drink some warm water. walk around the house a few times. Just listen to your body, it will show you your own limits. And so, reading becomes a harmonious dialogue between your mind and body, no longer a suffering. Once you know how to read gently and listen to your body, we come to the third tip, a little secret that many people have never thought of. Reading with your ears is as effective as reading with your eyes. Yes, you heard right. In this day and age, audiobooks are a great way for us to continue loving books without straining our eyes to read. I have an 84-year-old uncle living in Vietnam. He used to be a literature teacher and loved reading so much that he carried a book with him wherever he went. But after he got macular degeneration, reading printed words became extremely difficult. At first, he was very sad, feeling like a part of his life had been taken away. But then, one day, his nephew gave him a small speaker and installed audiobooks on it. And from that day on, he read by ear. He said that there were days when he lay on the chair, eyes closed, listening to each sentence read by a warm voice. He felt like he was being lulled into another world. He listened while cooking, while walking, even while resting. And his mind, according to him, still remembers poems from his school days. Researchers at Harvard have also announced that listening to audiobooks activates the same areas of the brain as when we read with our eyes. That is, the effect on intelligence is the same. Even when we listen, especially when the voice is emotional, the brain remembers longer because of the emotional element involved. So, don't hesitate to try listening to audiobooks. Even if your eyes are still good, sometimes listening to books is a great way to rest your eyes and let your mind run around in an imaginary world. It's a relief to know that reading doesn't have to be a chore, right? These first three tips, reading for enjoyment, listening to your body, and reading with your ears, can completely change the way we approach books as we age. And more importantly, they help us continue our journey of intellectual training without harming our health. In the next part, we will continue to explore other very close, very practical ways to train our brains through books, but without fatigue, without pressure. These small tips, which can be applied from tomorrow, will make reading a daily joy instead of a worry. And now, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and prepare to join me on this journey. Here we go. Tip 4. Don't read alone, read to retell. Many people think that reading is a private thing, only for themselves. But in fact, if we share the content of the book we are reading, our brains will be exercised twice as much. Because when we retell even just a short passage, we are remembering, selecting, and expressing it in our own language. That is a very natural way to exercise the brain. I know an old man, 72 years old, also in Vietnam. He has a habit of video calling his grandson, who is in 6th grade, every week and retelling a short story he has just read. Sometimes he tells a joke, sometimes an anecdote about history or a famous person. The interesting thing is that after each retelling, the grandson asks more questions, argues, or shares his thoughts. And so the uncle and nephew maintain the bond, and also make the uncle's memory more flexible. Others read to tell, their spouses. A couple in their 70s, every night before going to bed, one person tells the other a passage of a book. It is also a kind of gentle conversation, helping both of them understand a story more and become closer. So, don't keep books just for yourself. If you find something interesting, tell your relatives, friends, or even a close neighbor a passage. Retelling is a way of rereading. And the brain, through that, is refreshed and challenged in a very natural way. Next is the 5th tip. Don't just read new books, reread the ones you used to love. When I was young, I often read out of curiosity, wanting to know more, faster. But at this age, what I need is not necessarily new knowledge, but to deepen what I have experienced. An old lady over 80 years old once told me, there is a book I first read when I was 30, read it again when I was 60 and it was completely different, then read it again when I was 80 and felt like my own life was in it. You see, it is the same book, but each time I read it, I look back at myself. Rereading does not mean that it lacks novelty, but rather rediscovers familiar things with a more mature eye. When I reread an old book, I no longer have to try to remember it, I understand it easily. And the feeling of, now I really understand this, is a kind of quiet, very profound happiness. My aunt also lives in Vietnam. She used to be a primary school teacher. Now she has been retired for more than 15 years. She keeps most of the children's literature books that she used to teach her students. On free evenings, she opens them up and reads them again. And he said that every time he rereads it, memories come flooding back, sometimes with innocent laughter, sometimes with silent tears. That is the magic of old books. They never get old with a heart that still has emotions. So, don't be afraid to reopen the books you used to love. It's not just to read, but to remember, to relive a part of your youth, to let your soul continue to flourish at an age that many people think is just resting. And the last tip, the sixth tip, take notes of things that make you smile. Don't think taking notes is a cumbersome thing. At this age, we don't take notes to learn, but to recall emotions, to keep small rays of light in our minds. Take a short line. It could be a good quote, an idea that makes us think, or simply a passage that makes us laugh. Some people use a pencil to lightly underline the text. Some people write a small notebook, called Inspiration Notebook. Some people are simpler, just stick a note on the refrigerator, write, page 32, the old man talks to his grandchild, very touching. That's enough. Writing like that is not to show off to anyone, but a way to tell yourself, today I read, and was moved. And later, when I open it again, I will see, oh, my soul was once so alive. Once when I went back to Vietnam, I visited a nursing home in Dalat. There was an old man named Tuan, who every day wrote down a favorite sentence from the book he was reading, then stuck it on the wall of his room. His room wall was full of small pieces of paper. The handwriting was a bit shaky, but full of deep and warm thoughts. Looking at it, I saw not the wall of an old man, but the picture of an eternally young soul. Dear friends, we have gone through 6 small tips together, but each tip carries within it a door that opens a new approach to books and the wisdom of old age. First, read as if you are enjoying, not memorizing. Second, listen to your body when reading, don't let the book control you. Third, read with your ears, take advantage of audiobooks to relax your mind. Fourth, read to tell, sharing is training your mind. Fifth, reread old books, because each time you read is a different life. Sixth, take notes of what makes you smile, keep precious emotions. You may not need to apply all of them. Just 1 or 2 things that are suitable for you are enough to make reading a journey worth looking forward to every day. At this age, we do not read to compete, nor do we need to prove anything to anyone. We read to live more deeply, more consciously, and more warmly. And if one day, someone asks you, how much reading is good? Smile and answer, enough to make my heart flutter every day, that's good. Dear friends, up to this point, we have understood that reading is not simply turning pages, but a journey to explore the soul, train the mind, and keep the fire burning for old age. So the question is, how to start or return to the habit of reading in the most gentle and natural way? I would like to share a few simple, practical suggestions, like small wooden steps, to help you enter the world of books slowly, but persistently. First, start with 5 to 10 minutes a day. You don't need to read for hours. Sometimes just 5 to 10 minutes a day in the morning when the weather is still cool, or late afternoon with a cup of tea, is enough to rekindle the inspiration to read. The most important thing is not to read a lot, but to read regularly. It's like watering a plant a little bit every day, then it will be healthy and bloom. I have a neighbor, he told me, he spends exactly 10 minutes every morning, after exercising, to read a small passage of a book. No matter how busy or tired he is, he still keeps that habit. And the strange thing is, the more he reads regularly, the more clear-headed and happy he feels. Second, choose a book that suits your mood. It doesn't need to be high level. At this age, we don't need to force ourselves to read academic or philosophical books if our souls just need a little peace and relaxation. There are days when we just want to read a few pages of poetry, a few short stories, or a few light essays. Books are like companions. When we feel tired, we choose a light book. When our mind is clear, we try something a little deeper. The most important thing is that we are comfortable with our own choices. If we read with our eyes, heart, and memories, that is a very rich way of reading, not in terms of knowledge, but in terms of emotions. Third, create a comfortable reading space, even a small corner. A soft chair, warm yellow light, a cup of warm tea next to you, and a light book. Sometimes that is enough for you to enter another world. You don't need a luxurious reading room, just a small quiet corner and a little privacy for your soul. If you live with your children, you can choose a time when the house is quiet, like after lunch or in the evening. If you live alone, it is even easier to arrange. Just remember to keep the space airy, clean, and cozy, because the environment also greatly affects whether we can concentrate or not. Fourth, no pressure to finish, just read as much as you can. Many people give up reading just because they think they have to finish this book before they can read another. But at this age, we have the right to be free. Read half a book, then move on to another one, that's fine. The important thing is that your mind is fed regularly. If you can't get into it today, close the book and continue reading tomorrow. If you find the book isn't right for you, change to another. Reading is about making friends with yourself, and friends should never force each other. Fifth, record your reading journey, a few lines each week. You can try writing a short line after each week. What did you read this week? Which page made you smile? What ideas do you remember? It can be in a small notebook or just a few lines on a wall calendar. Recording like this helps you connect with yourself, and in the long run, it will become a treasure trove of memories so that one day, you will be surprised when you look back. Sixth, read books with others, even if only over the phone. If you have friends of the same age or grandchildren living far away from home, don't be afraid to invite them to read a book together. Call each other every week to tell a passage or share a few interesting lines. This helps you maintain social interaction and makes the book more lively. There is an old man in Texas who calls his old friend in California every week. They both read a history book, and then they debate every Saturday night. That is the great joy of the whole week. Books will be the bridge, not only between minds, but also between hearts. Dear friends, reading books at the age of 60, 70, or even 90 is not to become a scholar, but to keep the mind bright, the heart open, and the soul alive. We don't need to read a lot, just read regularly. We don't need to read quickly, just feel deeply. And we don't need to read to remember, just read to love this life more. Hopefully after this video, you will find a book for yourself, thick or thin, old or new, and start a slow, warm journey, as if chatting with an old friend. Oh, and if you find this video easy to listen to, easy to understand, and brings something positive, then please click the like button below, so I know you are still here, listening with me. And if you find what I share can be useful for your friends and relatives, especially those who are also entering retirement age, slowing down their lives, then don't hesitate to share this video with them. Who knows, just a word, a small story, can touch the heart of someone who needs a little comfort, a little inspiration to live. Oh, you can also click the subscribe button, completely free, so that every time I release a new video, YouTube will remind you to visit. It's like we're making a date for a warm cup of tea, telling each other some simple but precious things about old age. And finally, I look forward to hearing you share. What book are you reading? Is there a passage from a book that you can't forget? Or, simply, what does a book mean to you at this age? Leave a few lines in the comments section below. I always read every line and appreciate every share. I wish you a peaceful, happy, healthy life, and every page you open is a new journey in your soul. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and see you in the next video.